On this episode of the 520 Collective Podcast, we've got independent filmmaker Joe Henkel talking about his latest projects as well as the 2022 WAVMaker Awards finalist announcement. We're also talking about how Elon Musk has changed Twitter and the response we've seen so far. Let's go!
Just a flip of the watch, it's game time 20. Just a flip of the watch, it's game time on it. Just a flip of the watch, it's game time on it. Just a flip of the watch, it's game time, Message heavy, don't prime show, they not ready. Race against the time like four wheels and ain't ready. Keep it steady, beat it hard and they barely give them ears to hear the truth in the light. Don't confetti, message heavy, don't prime show, they not ready. Race against the time like four wheels and ain't ready. Keep it steady, beat it hard and they barely give them ears to hear the truth in the light. Don't confetti, just a flip of the watch, it's game time. Flip of the watch, it's game time. Just a flip of the watch, it's game time. 20. Flip of the watch, it's game time. Just a flip of the watch, it's game time. Flip of the watch, it's game time. 5 to the flip of the watch, it's game time. 5 to the flip of the watch, it's game time. 520.
Welcome to this month's 520 Collective Podcast. I'm Eric Boston. You can check me out on Twitter at EricBoston3. That's Eric at Eric Boston and the number 3. And with me, as always, my guy Zero for Hire and KD King David the Vessel. What's good, guys?
What's happening?
Yo, what's going on?
Just checking my social media.
Oh man, yeah, it's a fun night. This is something, dude. That's all I'm gonna say. So yeah, guys. Zero, man, where do people follow you?
You can find me at Twitter at Zero for Hire. I'm probably commenting on there right now. And you can follow me on WAVMaker, The Legend of Zero. I got to start plugging that away a lot more often. So
WAVMaker plug, though. Twitter, Yielded Man. Instagram, The Vessel KD. Facebook, KD The Vessel. See what I did there? Inversion. But yeah, otherwise, man, hit me up, yieldedmusic.com, and you can connect with all the socials. I love making new friends.
Let's just jump into it, man, because otherwise we're gonna who knows what rabbit trails we're gonna get.
No small talk.
I'm saying if we start talking about randomness, we may never come back from it. Man, over the last month, man, we have had fan voting going on at 520club.com for this year's 2022 WAVMaker Awards, and that voting has finished, and we have our awards finalists, man. So we're going to dive into this. We're going to announce these finalists. Again, if you didn't know, this year's WAVMaker Awards is going down on January 1st, and it's being powered by Trackstars. We are going to be live on the Trackstars channel. And yeah, man, it's going to be a good time, man. We got a lot of stuff planned, and we got we got like a month and a half, man, away. So I'm excited, dude. I mean, where do we want to start at? How about, so we had 3 categories that were actually not on the public ballot. So how about we start with those 3? All right, so we got the EP/mixtape of the year, and our finalist for that award is Enjoy the Mixtape by Desi Yates. We got Dreams and Schemes by Eternity. And then we got AOT Volume 3, the Alien Revolution 90s mixtape from Arrows of Truth. So 3 very good projects, man. I'm excited. Our guy Pacaso was part of that Arrows of Truth mixtape. Desi Yates, I felt like put out a very solid project with Enjoy the Mixtape, and then Eternity, man, one of the best EPs I heard this year. So that one's gonna be, I'm excited to see how everything goes down with that category, man. All right, man, our next category is the Female Artist of the Year, and our finalists for Female Artist of the Year are Childlike Cece, Tarsia Renee, and Reese Lachey.
That's a pretty hot award there, bro.
Yeah, man. Tarsia Renee just dropped a new single yesterday. Make sure you check that out.
I don't think I've heard anything from her in a while. I better check that out.
Yeah, she's dropped a couple of tracks this year. Like I said, just dropped a new one yesterday, and a video for it as well, man. Driving one of those fancy cars in the video too. So you can check it out at 520club.com on the homepage. And then finally we got producer of the year. This was the third one that was not on the ballot. And dude, I whenever we're putting these together, right, and we do the initial nominees and we start seeing votes come in for some of the other categories, I start kind of trying to look ahead and do the crystal ball thing a little bit, right? Where I'm trying to say, okay, how do I see this potentially shaking out? And do this producer of the year category, I have no idea, man. It's that tough. So, I mean, we got 3 very good names here. We got New Self, we got El Val, and we've got K Drama as our finalists for producer of the year. And I have no idea where we're gonna end up going, because dude, like, New Self done a ton of like remix singles and stuff this year with some of those dudes from Elect. El Val had a huge year as well, and then we all know about K Drama, man. So there's gonna be some conversation probably for that one happening.
I think so.
Yeah, man. So now let's get into the 7 categories that we're up for the public vote here, and we're going to start with cover art of the year. I'm just kind of going up the list, I guess, instead of down it. Those finalists are Lil Red, Spiritual Warfare, Brinson, Before He Cracks the Sky, and Scribe Music, Duppy Conqueror. So let's see, Rookie of the Year. So we got the Rookie of the Year award coming back this year after 1 year hiatus last year. So I'm really excited to have this one back, because this is our original award from our very first year and second year. And our finalists are Little Red, Oatmeal, and Untitled. So we got God Chasers, we've got TLS represented in there.
That's some stiff competition,
dude. And my guy Little Red, he took a break, man. He was gone for over a year, man, and then he came back with a vengeance this year. Really good releases that he's been putting out.
Yeah, but Untitled's got
the
only song I've ever called perfect.
I'm telling you, man, the finalists on all of these categories, man, like I feel like there's not a single category where we can't say, oh man, they didn't get it right. Like we've got good finalists all the way around. Our next one is Collaboration of the Year. So we've got Scribe Music and New Tone with Duppy Conqueror, TC, BRM, and Hugh Holla with Little Saint, and then TLS, Trutha, Q-Flow, Prodi the Prodigal, Legacy, and the record is Resurrection. So that is our Collaboration of the Year finalist.
Dope.
All right, man. Lyricist of the Year. Again, dude. Come on, man. Cut Right, Q Flow, and YP, aka Young Paul.
No.
Spitters, man. Spitters, dude. So, okay, for people who don't know, this is the way that we kind of decide the winners. So, like, the fan vote decides our finalists, right? And then typically our team, our 520 staff, get together and we kind of do our own voting, and we do some discussion about, who do we think should get it out of the finalists that y'all voted for, right? This year we are going to be adding in, we got some sponsors for this year award. The sponsors are going to get a chance to vote. So if you want to help us decide who these winners are going to be, make sure you go and grab one of those last sponsor spots. But dude, like, for real, the more I read through these finalists, I'm like, someone's going to have to convince me some way, because I'm going to be sitting there going, I don't know. I don't know who I want to vote for on these, because it's not fair, man. It's not, I mean,
it's going to be good.
Dude,
good
like that.
Man.
Think about that. Cut Right, Q Flow, and YP, aka Young Paul. Those are lyricists, man. Those are lyricists, so. All right, so we're getting into the final 3 categories here. Single of the Year. We've got Little Red, Memories, Cut Right, Trophy, And then Scribe and Cody Free, Show and Tell. How y'all feeling on that?
It's gonna be interesting, internal conversation, man.
I'll tell you this, man. That Show and Tell with Scribe and Cody Free, that came out pretty early in the year, and it was one of the first ones that really caught my attention. Again, I think we got some really good finalists in that spot. And then we've got our last two categories. We've got the Project of the Year. Man, dude, I just keep thinking about we're going to have to vote on this, and I have no idea what I'm going to do. So
come on with it.
Project of
I ain't got no special effects over here.
Right. Project of the Year. Project of the Year finalists for the 2022 WAVMaker Awards. Heavenly Legacy by New Tone. Before He Cracks the Sky by Brinson. And Pronounced Puyol by Eddie Puyol.
Oh my gosh. Oh goodness.
Yo. Oh man.
Hey KD,
Okay.
can we get that air horn again?
Oh,
Man,
dude.
yo, hey,
I'm
okay,
telling you,
okay,
man.
Okay.
Yeah, so shout out to New Tone Brinson and Eddie Puyol for being the finalists for our
Shout
Project of the
out.
Year. And then
Yep.
we've got one more category, and it is our Artist of the
Artist
Year.
of the year. Yeah.
So our three finalists for Artist of the Year 2022 are New Tone, Brinson, and BRM.
Man, come on, man. These dudes is like Michael Jackson at the 84 Grammys, man. I mean, dude, this man. Somebody stands to really clean up.
We gotta vote on all of this.
At the WAVMaker.
Yeah,
Yo.
trust me, we're gonna start those conversations and those votings here next week. So.
Yeah, we ain't gonna start the conversation right now. I need to sleep on this.
No,
After
we
this,
got
like,
a little bit of time.
I'm
but
just
it's not
turn off the
gonna
camera.
be easy. It's not gonna be fair.
I'm gonna head on out.
But again, those are our 2022 WAVMaker Award finalists. Make sure you tune in on the Trackstars YouTube channel on January 1st, 2023, 8 p.m. Central Time. Tune in as we hang out with my guys Ryan Righteous, DJ Jeremiah, and maybe Shantana. I'm not sure if Sean's going to be there or not, but definitely Ryan and Jeremiah. So we're going to have some cool stuff happening. We got some stuff that I got to keep under wraps until the show, man. But I'm excited to share it on the stream on January 1st. So shout out to everyone that took the time over the past month to go to 520club.com and cast your votes. We blew away our vote total from last year, so I love to see it, love to see the growth, and it's because of y'all. So some other stuff has been happening over the past month, and Zero, I'm gonna let you take it, man. Like what's been happening? What do we need to talk about, dude?
Bro, Twitter. Elon Musk purchased Twitter, and we've been following this timeline. I don't know. I've been following this timeline, like checking in to see what's going on with the recent Twitter drama since like 3 months ago. And I knew it was going to be something exciting, but I never thought that I would see some of the things happening in our culture because somebody bought a website. And I was like, we should at least talk about this. So I don't know how much you guys have been following, and I would like to, I'd like to know like when you guys started paying attention, because I started paying attention back when Twitter shares like blipped up like $1, and I think it was like $34 a share. I was like, oh, that's interesting. Maybe I should look at Twitter. And then they said Elon's going to buy Twitter, and I was just like, maybe I should buy some Twitter. Ever since then, it's just been like news report after news report, and I think this is probably like culturally one of the bigger stories of our decade, to be honest.
I mean, I've followed along with it kind of since, they announced that he was looking at making the purchase, and then, that whole roller coaster of, oh wait, now he's backing out. Wait, he's back in again. And it was one of those things where I was like, man, I'm just gonna. All you can do is wait and see, right? And then I guess if the purchase goes through, cool. Then we'll see what happens. But the purchase has gone through. He's taken over, and he has wasted no time. Making some changes and the reaction is kind of all over the place to those changes for sure. I want to hit on that. Zero, I know you got the lead on this. So I'm sure you're going to hit on it, but at some point, I hope that we take a minute and try to connect the dot to why this matters when we're talking about Christian culture and like the Christian rap world as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And we can jump on that at any time. I remember you came onto my podcast and we had talked a bit about that, searching Twitter by hashtags and looking for different kinds of Christian culture and seeing how the church was divided in different ways just based on hashtags on Twitter. And we had a whole conversation about that. Twitter is ingrained in our culture. It's something that everyone knows about. It's something that it's a household name. Everybody knows what you're referring to when you bring it up. And yet, for the most part, 17% of Americans were on Twitter, active on Twitter. I think that was on the high end. So keep in mind, the numbers that I throw out here, they're not solid numbers. So much has been going on with Twitter that it's kind of hard to dig up the older articles. But last time we talked about this, I think it was 17% of Americans were on Twitter, and only about 7 to 10% of those people were even active on Twitter, like regularly. So this isn't like it's not like you can just throw a rock and hit somebody and they're on Twitter. Like this Facebook is probably the widest used website, and they say that that's going down now that TikTok is out. But what was unique about Twitter and what made it different from Facebook and MySpace was anytime you went, let's say you were watching some movie and you liked an actor in that movie, you could look up that actor and they most likely had a Twitter. And you combine that with the fact that they were using it as a way to roll out news. So before, when a news story broke, people posted on their Facebook, and then you would go from their Facebook to the article and read about it. Twitter's so much faster. It's like all of journalists are on Twitter. All of the Hollywood and movie stars are on there. Most of the music industry is on Twitter. Even in our Christian circles, magazines and websites and things, in the forum, it's like, what's your Twitter handle? Because it was just expected of you to be on Twitter.
Right. I mean, is it fair to say that Twitter has been like the number one news source for several years now? Is that fair to say?
It is fair to say, and I think that's a downside as well, because it used to be just like gossip news and be like, oh yeah, but that's just Twitter. And now it's like it's the for real news.
Well, I mean, I just think back to Andy Mineo even put it in one of his songs where like, hey, we go to Twitter to get our news and we're going to get it a day before you put it out anywhere else, and that's the truth. Like you said, I mean, journalists on there, it gave journalists who were serious about what they do an opportunity to, share that information without it being, run through a producer or a head of whatever, that had to approve it and maybe fix a narrative or whatever.
No edits.
And I think that's partially a double-edged sword. Sorry, Katie, what'd you say?
No, I was just agreeing. No edits, no protocol, no SOP to run through, no red tape, none of that. Just if you want to put the story out, you put it out. And like you said, 6 in one hand, half a dozen in the other. Unvetted information, unfounded information. We don't care what the source is. It could be your uncle or your cousin. You put it on Twitter and it is what it is, right?
And that's where the plot thickens, because we always had this attitude of like, oh, it's just Twitter. It's just like this teenager thing. We don't take it serious. And there were people on there that were like, teenagers and people who were behave like teenagers, and maybe they should have grown up by now, but they still have. And 10 years later, those people are the same people, but they're older and they're more in tune with the fine-tuned part of Twitter and the conversation. And there's a lot more intricacies here.
Here's what bugs me is like, we don't know how any of this is going to shake out yet, right? Like you said, there's not been time for Elon and his team to do what they're going to do. And I'm not saying that I'm like fully backing him and I don't know. Well, let's see what they do. And it might turn terrible, and I might want to get off of Twitter too. I don't know. Right? But it's not been long enough. We haven't had a chance to see it. I think that's where we also need to make sure, like I said earlier, that we circle it back around and do talk about how it applies and where it connects to the Christian rap world. I've got my thoughts. KD, I want to hear from you though, man. Like, how do you see it? Like, 'cause at the end of the day, this is just a tool, right? It's a tool to be used, and how are you using it? But how do you see this tool and the way it should be used based off what we're currently seeing? Like I said, we don't know where this is all going to play out. We've got to give it time.
Well, I mean, ultimately, again, and to the point that you made, any social platform for the Christian, for the saint of God, needs to be used with a level of intentionality. It's so easy to get caught up in just posting about anything and whatever because it's what everybody else is doing. The reoccurring theme should be, my faith in Jesus Christ and whatever it is that God has given me to share with other individuals. Like, that part is important, right? But I think it does us good to take note, because the major complaints about this and why it's being viewed in such a tyrannical manner is the fact that it comes in and it starts laying people off. But if you're going to attempt to change a culture, that means that you have to cut ties with what was. But in order to change a culture, to shift a culture, you have to uproot what's been, so that you can establish what needs to be. And again, that's a great lesson for us to pay attention to, that we can take away from this situation. Again, what we never want to do is get so caught up in what's going on around us that we forget what our mission is, what our goal, what our focus is.
At the end of the day, you have to take the time to actually get the information, process it, apply it, right? Figure out what it means for you. If we're talking to the artist within Christian hip hop, do you absolutely need Twitter? Maybe not, right? Because maybe Instagram, everyone talks about Instagram, right? Maybe that works better for an artist. When we're talking about like us, like 520 Collective, where we're a media platform, out of all the social media options, Twitter is the best option for us social media wise. And that shows also just by the traction we had. Whenever you look at, how many people we've been able to connect with on various social media platforms, right? Twitter gives us the best results. But not only that, it's just what it allows users to do, right? As a media platform, we want to be able to share links on every post and tell you what's going on the website or here or there or the other, right? Where we're not necessarily trying to just share you a clip of a song. We're not artists, right? You guys are artists individually, but us as a platform are not. So we need to use Twitter in that way, right? That's how we are using the tool and we are applying it. Could Elon come in here and make some of these changes and it affect our ability to use the tool in that way? Sure, 100%, right? And if that happens, then we have to pivot. We have to adjust. We have to take in the new information. What we can't do is jump the gun. And at the end of the day, everyone that's freaking out 24 hours after the purchase became official, all you're doing is you're just hearing the talking heads, the people that scream the loudest, giving you their hot take because they can't wait. They don't have the time to let anything play out.
But let me say this: if we're wilding out over changes, and this is why you hear a lot of individuals talk about, hey, don't forget your email list. Don't forget, direct contact. When we talk about like relationship building, and like, Eric, this is something that I consistently talk to you about, just in terms of one of the things that helps to set us apart from all the other platforms who do something similar to what we do. If we are end of the world, the sky is falling over any social media platform, we've gotten completely off base, and maybe we don't realize it. We're supposed to use social media. Social media is not supposed to use us, but it's been using us, man. It's been using us big time. And so knee-jerk reactions when stuff like this happen is evidence of that.
To your point, especially if you're involved in anything, whether it's music, media, whatever, if you're anything that has Christian attached to it, right? That has Christ attached to it, yeah, you better make sure you're setting yourself up, right? To be able to survive some of this stuff, right? Like you said, get your newsletter, get your direct contact with people. Speaking of, go to 520club.com and join our newsletter on there. And I know this in the back of my head, as much as we do use Twitter and it works well for us, at some point they're gonna shut us up, right? That's gonna end up being the goal of the world, right? Is to silence the Christians. And so we need to ask ourselves, how invested in this are we? What are we willing to stand up for? Are we willing to compromise? Or, hopefully not. Does being on the most popular social media platform, does that mean more than the mission that we've been charged with, to where we compromise to do so? That's my thoughts. Zero.
I got so into how we got here that I didn't consider the other alternative of, for a Christian, how we're supposed to be comparing whatever's going on, how does it line up with God's word? And I think I was trying to make that more impactful, but like we're in this weird brief moment in history where the that whole thing about the frog in the boiling pot, and he doesn't realize he's boiling. The water the fire turned off for a minute. We don't know if they're going to turn the fire back on because Elon doesn't have the same values as the people that ran the thing before. But when he kicked them out of the office, when he turned off the algorithms, when he started making some of these changes, we started seeing our friends again. And that's the aspect that I'm pointing at. You say Christian, like Christianity Today will post things that some people don't really see as Christian. But then you see, well, they've got so many followers, it must be true. And that affects people. That you're supposed to, you're listening to your pastor, and then you see Christianity Today saying something totally different. You're like, well, maybe I don't want to be on the losing end because of how we're wired socially. And if we don't have a firm grasp, I'm a 40-year-old man. I have a pretty firm grasp on how the Bible lines up with reality. But a 14-year-old is going to see the world very differently. A 24-year-old is going to see the world very differently. And they might not have those tools in place yet because of how the world works. And I don't think it's necessarily because they're on Twitter. I think it's the influencers on Twitter are being influenced by the things that were going on Twitter. And now we're in this point in history where they just turn that feed off, and these people don't have anybody to tell them what to think. And at the same time, we have our voices back. So this is an opportunity. And so I guess I do get passionate because it's confusing, but it's like, this is a short window. We have an opportunity to reconnect with those people, to reach these people that we've lost contact with. I think very soon, in the next few weeks, you are going to see some of the biggest influencers in the world lose followers like you wouldn't believe. And it's not going to be that people aren't listening. It's going to be the bots are gone. And you're going to see these people were lying to me. And my favorite Christian artist isn't as popular as I thought he was. And my favorite Christian, program isn't as relevant as I thought they were. And you're going to see people who are telling the truth, probably for the first time. And so I don't know how to compare this. Like, yeah, I'm good at comparing God's word to reality because, the truth hurt. The truth, people say the truth hurts. Lies hurt people. The truth is what heals. And that's the only way that we can see the truth is through God's word. We have to filter it all through there. But I think we've seen a good 10-year-long example of how easy it is to get off track. And that's really what I'm trying to drive home, is that the last 10 years we've been chasing lies that have led us to more lies. And the world's not what we think it is, especially on Twitter, especially online. And those real world connections, those real world relationships, that stuff is so much, not just so much more important, but it's like, it is the reality. Me talking to you, that's the reality. What Lecrae and Andy Mineo say, if as much as I might like them, I don't really know them. I don't know if that's what they're living like. I don't know if that's their life. I don't know the people who are putting articles in Relevant Magazine and if they're really Christians or if they're just another BuzzFeed. I don't know. And I think that's something that we, as artists, as Christians, as publications, like we really got to be paying attention to that, because that faucet's going to get turned back on again.
Yeah. I want to know what people have to say. So go to 520clef.com, leave us some comments there. Go to our YouTube channel and you can leave comments under the video. But hit us up, man. You can join the Discord. You guys know where y'all can reach out to us, man. We're available. Let us know your thoughts, man. How you feeling about what's happening with Twitter and Elon Musk, or just social media in general? What do you think that as a culture we need to be aware of and thinking about and preparing for? And how should we stay connected, man? So let us know, because we and definitely, like we said, go join the newsletter, man, so we can stay connected with you directly as well. But fellas, as always, man, it's fun hanging out with y'all. It is time for this month's Industry Insider interview. And like I said earlier at the beginning of the show, this month we've got independent filmmaker Joe Henkel joining us. Great conversation. He's got a couple of movie projects in the works that you're going to want to check out. So make sure you stick around after the break and check out that Industry Insider interview with Joe Henkel. And we will be back with you here on the podcast next month. Let's go. Artist, what is the key to getting your music to your target listener? Making sure that your catalog is available where people are listening. Trackstars is helping independent artists do just that with Nectar Distro. Sign up for Nectar today to have your music delivered for you to all the major digital streaming platforms, including Spotify, Apple Music, Tidal, SoundCloud, YouTube, and much, much more. Go to 520collective.com/nectar, that's NECTAR now, to sign up and keep 100% of your royalties along with all of your music rights. With monthly payouts, comprehensive reports, specialty tools like the Single Maximizer and account management services, along with a dedicated team that understands your needs as an artist, it really is hard to beat what Nectar Distro and Trackstars bring to the table. So hit up 520collective.com/nectar to get started now.
Hey guys, it's Darius Mullen with 520 back again, and I just got to ask one thing. Did anybody not drop in October? I mean, this past month was loaded. I only get to hit a few highlights, of course, so I'd be remiss not to remind you to check out 520collective.com for more new releases. To mention just a few of the many, many notable October 2022 releases: Lotto by DJ Mike LV in 1995, released with features from No Big Deal, Swoop, and Aha Gazelle, and boy did they deliver. October 28th in particular was slam-packed with the new single Feed the People by Trutha and Mike Wise, the Humble Tape by Just James, that's HMBL, and the legend himself, Ambassador, with the comeback album The Invitation. And then finally coming in with the last-second Halloween release, we've got an absolute banger called Hell's Nightmare by Oso, Sia the Legend, and Prodi the Prodigal. Not one to miss out on, that's for sure. Listen, I'm Darius Mullen, and these are just a few of the amazing songs to listen to from the past month. I'll talk at you next time, and remember, no Christmas music until after Thanksgiving. Peace.
Hey guys, I want to say thank you for listening to the 520 Collective podcast. This month's Industry Insider interview is coming up in just a moment. Before we listen in, make sure to check out 520collective.com. It is the home for indie news and faith-based hip-hop. Follow us on social media, including Twitter and Instagram at 520_co. Also, to get exclusive content, hit up our WAVMaker account where you'll find extended interviews, playlists, and more. Let's jump into this month's interview. Welcome to this month's Industry Insider interview, brought to you officially by Bookkeeper247.com. All right, what's up? Welcome to another Industry Insider interview here on the 520 Collective podcast. As always, we are being sponsored by the Bookkeeper 24/7. Check them out at tbk247.com. I'm your host, Eric Boston, and joining me right now on the 520 Collective phone line, man, he is a movie director, video producer, lots of different stuff that we're going to talk about. It is Joe Henkel here with me. How you doing, Joe?
I'm doing wonderful. Glad to be here.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, man, you kind of popped up on my radar just for being in the like Christian hip hop space, right? I spend a lot of time on Twitter, probably more than I need to.
Same.
Right? But yeah, so I saw you pop up. I was like, who is this dude? You know, and then I saw stuff like, he's got videos where he's hanging out with Cody Free and all this different stuff, right? But then I got to see what you were doing, as far as like, you know, your involvement with film and stuff. I'm like, oh, dude, this is pretty cool, man. This is stuff that we need to highlight. So I'm glad you're able to hop on the podcast with us, man.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to be here, and just happy to finally, you know, talk. I feel like so many of our Twitter friends and mutuals, we just like tweet. We don't even know, you know, too much about what they do or where they are or what they look like, and it's fun to talk on video finally.
Right, yeah, man, for sure. So for people who maybe are not as familiar with you, why don't you give us a little rundown just of kind of your background and what it is that you do, man?
Yeah. So mostly I do marketing. So I do video editing for small businesses and startups. So I've been doing that for the last like 4 years. 4 years ago, when I started doing video, I had like no experience, no like really, I never owned a camera other than like my phone. And I just kind of started out, you know, I want to start making YouTube videos. So I started YouTube channels. When you start something, the first like 2 years, you're just figuring it out. You're just experimenting. And that's someone that goes deep into training and getting educated real quick. Like at the first a couple years, it was just kind of like chaotic, right? And I figured out, you know, that I want to do this full time. I want to create full time. So I realized like for me, it made more sense going I'm going to learn a skill and I'm going to learn how to do this for other people, that businesses that will pay me, more than like the influencer route. Even though like both kind of sounded fun, but I'm like, influencer route sounded so much longer. So I just started learning, you know, how to edit real well and connected with people and figured out like how I could monetize that. So yeah, I've been doing it a year and a half ago. I quit my job doing construction full time, which I hated, to doing full time.
Yeah. So let me ask you this, man, because I mean, like I said, obviously came across you in the Christian hip hop circles, Christian hip hop spaces, man. What is it about Christian hip hop that kind of drew you in and got you connected there? You know, we're going to talk about the video work, but let's start there.
I don't think there's a lot of one thing that I really respect about the Christian hip hop specifically. And in terms of like a creative space, is there's like a lot more community there. You know, for Christian YouTubers, there's Facebook groups. And one thing I really respected about like the Christian hip hop world was like the kind of community around it and people just, being collaborative, and music tends to be a little bit more that way, you know, than just like YouTube or, other forms of art. Listening to certain artists, I like Lecrae. I was listening to like every day in Tripoli at like when I first like got drafted into Christian hip hop Twitter or whatever, and just started engaging with a lot of people. But now I think what's kind of stuck me around is just like the people that I've listened to the music a lot and have grown to like and know, and like Thomas Iannucci and Cody Free and Senny and Nato Poppins and DJ L Val and Street Hymns that I'm just like really rock with and have good friendships with, that have really, you know, kept me engaged, and I just like, you know, a lot. You'll see me just tweeting memes to some of those artists and some other artists, just, you know, making them laugh, but also bringing awareness to their music.
Yeah, and dude, I wasn't even thinking about this, but you were behind the fake Cine account, aren't you?
Yes, behind the infamous or the famous or infamous, whatever it is, fake Cine account. And yeah, I love just trolling people.
So let's talk about that for a second, man. Like, what made you say, I'm going to do this fake account? And because there was like this whole, everyone was trying to figure out who's running this, who's doing this, you know, and then come to find out it's you, man. So like what drove you to say, I'm just going to do this? It
was just a random idea that I have. I have lots of like random ideas, but I had this random idea one day, and then I'm like, you know, I think Senny's gonna really appreciate this, and he can like appreciate my humor. And then the fun part was drawing it out and people trying to guess who was behind it, just making the most random memes, and that's basically what I do over there. Just I make people laugh however I can.
And it seems like no one in the independent Christian hip hop world is safe from that account either.
Oh no, I will roast anyone, or, you know, I'll be kind about it. And if someone's like, oh, it bothers them or whatever, I'll delete tweets or whatever. But yeah, I like roasting everyone.
As you build these relationships with these guys, artists, man, they need that video marketing help too, right? I don't know if you do that for them or not, but I mean, just how important, in your opinion, as someone who does this on a regular basis, you know, like how important is that, is being able to convey your content through a visual medium?
Yeah, it's definitely super important. So, like, a lot of it is like, it's fun to focus on, you know, the traditional things of like what was fun. And, you know, it's like, okay, MTV had this really cool run for a while, but it's like, and then really most of the artists moved to blowing up on YouTube. But now it's moving more towards things are happening on TikTok and Instagram Reels, and any platforms that you can get some attention and bring attention to your music is huge. So it's all about really for, I think, creatives who are trying to grow an audience and get more attention to whatever they're creating, figuring out what's working and just doing it. So yeah, it's important for artists to figure out what strategy works for them and what they can create consistently around that's going to bring attention to their whatever they're creating.
I mean, obviously, you know, you said that kind of, you know, what you're doing as far as making a living right now is through this marketing, working with companies, but I know you're passionate about film. So you're an independent filmmaker as well, man. Like, what got you into just, I guess first, I mean, it'd be easy to say, you know, what got you into making films, but just what sparked that, like, love and that passion for films in the first place for you?
I have like a very core memory of like when I was like 6, 7, 8, people would say like, "Oh, Joe's ruined his eyes. He's glued to the tube. He watches way too much TV." And I would hear that from all family and people, and you know, and especially I think, you know, 20 years ago is like, oh, TV was a problem. Now it's like there's always going to be the quote problem that people will put on certain things. But when I was a kid, just, you know, Joe watches way too much TV and movies. But now, like, I'm looking back and thinking about all those films that inspired me and inspired me to want to tell good stories and inspired me to live a life that is good and beautiful and following truth. And specifically, like, the Disney movies that had like a very like, were emotionally connected to, I felt emotionally connected to them. Then while I started creating, you know, specifically on YouTube and creating just a video in general, I enjoy it. The one part about like creating video that gets boring, especially if you're a solo creator, is the lack of like collaboration and just like the pressure to like do it all yourself. The cool part about filmmaking is taking time to make something really good and working with a group of people that all have different skills and talents, you know, from actors, from behind the scenes people like sound and lighting and the camera people, and facilitating a group of people that are all passionate about this thing and trying to make something the best as possible. You know, YouTube, sitting in my room making YouTube videos by myself, or just, you know, editing videos for clients, which is fun sometimes, but gets boring after a while. Or just trying to make TikToks or, you know, or things like that gets a little boring after a while for me. For me, is like, okay, what really stirs my soul is like working with a group of people very passionate about this one story and trying to make this one thing as best as possible. And yeah, filmmaking is so much fun for me.
Yeah, man. And you know, I want to dive into, you know, just some of the projects. I know you kind of mentioned them, but before we do, I think I would miss out on an opportunity if I didn't ask you about just where does like faith kind of fall into all this for you? Because we know that, you know, in the music world, there's this like kind of tug of war for faith-based artists, you know, where you're trying to be relevant and not be corny. And I think it's similar in the world of film, right, as well. So like, where do you put that as far as priority for you and what you do? And how does it impact the choices you make?
Yeah, that's a great question. One thing that I go back to a lot is like being a representative for Christ. And that's how I see myself in terms of like, you know, Paul calls us in 1st or 2nd Corinthians ambassadors for Christ. And I think there's a lot of like pressure to just say things and do things and just and not necessarily in Christian culture, but just in culture in general, of like, just like do a lot of things and get attention to yourself and to just say whatever you're thinking. And that can be valuable in a sense. But really, I think the core of how I see myself and my mission is like, I'm just supposed to represent Jesus. And there's so many things, that I struggle with both in life and Christianity. And there's so many doubts and there's so many questions and there's so many things of like, oh, how does like Christianity apply to this certain area in the world? And how does this supposed to be interpreted? And so many things that it's like can get overwhelming for a while. And I feel like in a sense, our culture is sometimes overwhelmed by like the way that they would call weaponized, in Christianity, that it's become almost like some people just look at it as like a political movement in a sense. But Christianity is more than that. It's something, it's Jesus who gave his life for us and us are trying to follow him to the best of our abilities and being a representative for him. So like the core of what I see myself doing is following him and representing him with my life. And I think our art is always going to be outflow of that. But for me, I don't feel any pressure to make my art necessarily be a certain thing. If I have a story that I'm like, oh, this is compelling, I think everything that a Christian does, their faith will probably outflow into it somehow. But I don't necessarily feel pressure to like, well, make the next God's Not Dead movie or something like that. For me, it's just like, okay, yeah, I'm confident in who God's called me to be. And most of like going back to that of like, when I think of myself as an ambassador for Christ or a representative for Jesus Christ and do my best to follow him, my calling primary calling, like when I look at the New Testament, isn't to make movies for Jesus or make art for Jesus or make things that will bring people to Jesus. My calling is to live a life following Jesus and use my life and words and actions to draw people to him.
That was really good, man. And again, guys, joining me on the 520 Collective phone line, it is Joe Henkel. Man, let's talk about what you got working on. I know you got some short films that are happening. Where are we at on that?
Yeah, so my first short film's a romance, Two Souls, and both of them, so we filmed it at one location here in Fort Worth. Really, since I'm still like new to the filmmaking side of things, filmmaking in terms of like making movies. So I've been doing video for a long time, but in terms of like making movies, I'm like, okay, I want to start really simple, start really minimal. So small crew and, the actors that we have on are really good. So we're just finishing up and editing that. And then it's going to be, figuring out how to get it on streaming and figuring out, if we can do film fest or, however we can get our film out and bring attention to it and then monetize it in some way if that's possible, so still figuring out those side of things. And then my second one, Boys Will Become Men, is another short film that I'm working on. Just excited. And I just realized like, oh, there's so much that I don't know and so much that I'm figuring out and so much I'm learning, but there's so much that I'm also haven't learned and that I'm just kind of trying to do my best to apply. So, it's a journey. Filmmaking is for sure.
So the first one, the Two Souls, right? That's something that we'll be able to see first. Let's talk a little bit about that, man. Like what went into its creation, where was the inspiration for it, and give us just kind of a little summary about what the film is.
Romance stories in general often compel me, like good ones. And I think especially the sense of that characters can be honest in a sense. And that's one thing that I really want to bring to this story is like honestness between these two characters and if they meet and they open up a certain part of their heart and their perspective on love and life. So like that's what has always compelled me in terms of film is like people who are honest about their life and about where they're at and getting to see kind of a reflection of people's hearts and lives. So yeah, it's going to be about a 13, 14 minute film. And then I guess as soon as I can get it on something, that would be awesome if we get it approved for some streaming service that would be cool because we can monetize it that way and we can, get it out to people. So that's like the main goal. Yeah, I still don't know the process or the journey that's going to be to get it out to the public.
So why do people want to see this when it's done?
It's also a niche film that I realized, most people won't want to see it. And I think when I look at art, I also look at that way. It was like, not everyone's going to be a fan of our art, but it's if for those who enjoy, romance stories or enjoy stories that are reflective of real life, I think they'll enjoy, both these films I'm working on.
Okay. So what can you tell us about the second film? And again, remind me.
It's called Boys Will Become Men.
Boys Will Become Men. There we go. Okay.
Yeah, Boys Will Become Men is a story about a grandfather and his grandson. Well, it's about really 3 generations of men, a grandfather, son, and grandson. They go through a struggle together, and through that, they find just their love for family. I'm really happy about the actors that I have in this, and I think the story is really inspiring in a sense, and it's very kind of fun, inspirational films. And those are the films that have always inspired me, and those are the films that like I'm most passionate about creating, like inspirational family dramas where it's like I love a film that makes me want to call my dad after, or I love a film that makes me wish I was like, oh, I wish I was home right now. You know, like those types of movies that aren't necessarily. Sometimes I think we also feel the pressure of like to create something or art like that's going to change someone's life. But most things don't change our life. You know, like maybe we just hear a song that's like, you know what, I want to take care of I want to care for someone today. You know, or I want to read my Bible today, or I want to follow Jesus more today. You know, or I want to, you know, one of these things that's like, okay, yeah, it might not change our life, but if it pushes us in a positive direction, I think like in our either Christian walk or just our life, like I think that's kind of beautiful art that I think it's almost like too pretentious to say like, oh, I'm creating art that's going to change people's life. Like, you know, I hope that after someone sees this, they're like, you know, I want to call my dad, or I want to like visit my family for this weekend or something. You know, like that would be extremely like powerful art if I could create that.
You know, I think with, you know, everything and me and Zero, you know, my co-host on the podcast, we've been having these conversations a lot about even what we do with podcasting, right? You know, it'd be awesome for it to blow up and we had tons of listeners or whatever. But I think at the end of the day for us, and what my challenge has been is that at the end of the day, we are creating content that means something to us. And even if only one person listens to it, it means enough to us that we're going to continue to do it. You know, what's that kind of driving force with you? Like whenever you started, you know, just with even the writing process, and now like you're almost to that finish line. It seems like with this first film, like what's your hope there, man? Like whenever you see the outcome, I mean, obviously you talked about, you know, getting on streaming services and monetize. I think that's just kind of part of what comes along with all this, right? But like, what's the big thing for you? Like, what's the like? Okay, if this one thing is all that I get out of this process, it's going to be good. We're kind of
one thing that I feel like I neglected when I was early on in creating, and I think a lot of artists tend to like neglect, is like, oh, this obsession with like trying to make it, which, you know, I hope I make it in a sense, and I hope I, you know, am a successful filmmaker one day and my movies are in theaters and I make lots of money from them and stuff. That'd be fun. But like just the process, enjoying the process and not getting, you know, overwhelmed by the process and having fun in it and creating something that means something to artists. Like if we're missing that, like, why are we creating? You know, it's like, and obviously there's the practical part of it for all of us is like, okay, we need to make some money somewhere. So it would be way more fun to make money from, you know, what we're most passionate about. For me, it's just mostly about learning. It's about like going through the process of leading a group of people. You know, I've got about 10 to 15 people helping on this next film and helping facilitate something that we're all proud of and giving a fun experience to all of them and some, you know, movie credits that they can show to their friends and family. Yeah, I think it can be so easy to get like obsessed with one day or quote, I'm going to make it type of mindset is like, and that's good. And I'm a very much like visionary and dreamer and trying to build towards that. But like the process itself should be enjoyable and fun and should be inspiring to the people around us. And I think that goes back to being a representative of Jesus is like, yeah, we should be creating something that more important than creating a movie that like, let's say these films I'm working on that gets seen by 10 or 100,000 people that like are inspired and like, you know, more important for me is like the 10 to 15 people that I'm working with that see something good, beautiful, and true in me and see something that is like, oh, that inspires them and hopefully, you know, brings them closer to seeing Jesus as desirable and seeing following Jesus as something good. Yeah, it's so easy to get obsessed with, you know, the one day or the numbers or the whatever version of success that we put in our minds. But like in my mind, like success is walking with Jesus every day and caring about the people around us.
Again, I see these similarities between the film world and the music world, and when we're talking about, you're always looking for like that one thing, right, that kind of makes that artist a little bit different, that sets them apart a little bit. What's that thing that sets Joe apart as far as like from all the other independent filmmakers that are out there? You know, what's whenever people watch your films, what's that one thing that they're going to notice and be like, oh, okay, this is his unique thing?
Right now, there's nothing special yet in the sense of like, oh, my film isn't going to be as high quality as so many other movies coming out and stuff like that. And like, oh, that's fine. And I don't even necessarily think about it in that context, like, oh, what I'm doing compared to everyone else or everything else. For me, it's just like, oh, I'm going to create something that's honest to me, that I think will inspire people who watch it. And I think, especially like as artists and creatives, like thinking about, you know, comparing ourselves to anything else, you know, is not usually helpful, you know, and referencing our style to someone else's style can be helpful, but like in terms of like, there's nothing special about me, you know, I'm just another person trying to live out my dreams and follow Jesus and make something beautiful. And it's like, oh, but in terms of the film, what I'm real proud of is I think they're going to feel like honest to people's real life. And I think some people are going to watch these and be like, oh, that reminds me of this one time in my life. Yeah, I think if a few people feel that, like, I'm happy.
People that are listening, man, like, where are they going to go? Like, where can they go today, man, to get plugged into what you have going and start being that support base? Like, how do we, as a culture, get behind what you and other people like you are doing to really push all this forward?
Right now, it's like, oh, until this film's out, I can't really draw support to that. But once it's out, you know, stream it wherever we get it up and stuff, like, that will be helpful. And follow on Instagram, Twitter is always helpful in terms of like, oh, I'm able to see what other people are doing and connect and build those relationships and stuff. So like, that's always fun. I'll keep everyone posted, updated on those. In terms of like supporting, it's just, I think like us living our abundant life, us living like doing our best and creating what we're called to create or living the lives we're called to live is most important, you know, in terms of when we think of like supporting the culture, supporting other people, it's like, first of all, like live the life that you are called to live, right? And then it's like, you're not going to rock with everyone. You're not going to like everyone's music or everyone's movies or whatever like that. That's like, okay, you know, if some people, if 10% of people listen to this, or if someone listens to this finds like some inspiration and, you know, something in this podcast or something in the movies, like, oh, I'm really happy about that. But I also like recently I've just looked at it a little different of like, oh, I don't necessarily need everyone's support. And it's like, oh, I hope my dad and mom are proud of me. And I hope like this inspires some people certain ways. But I've also like just looked at it as less of like, just try to get everyone's, I don't know, the craving for like, trying to get everyone's attention has been overwhelming and frustrating to me in the past. I'm like, okay, after I create it, hopefully it's good. And if it's good, people like it. If it's bad or not that well done, I'll just learn for the next one, you know?
Yeah, man. And you mentioned Twitter and Instagram, man. Where do people follow you on there?
At the Joe Henkel, or on Twitter at Fake Senny or at the Joe Henkel, at Fake Senny for the memes. And I'll plug the legend Senny. So he's always put out good music, and I just really rock with his music. So yeah, feel free to send me a DM, especially if you're, you know, something resonated with you and you're like, oh, you know, want to talk about something. I'm always happy to talk in the DMs on Instagram and Twitter.
I'm excited to check out your film. You know, it may not be for me, like you said. I don't know, but I'm excited to check it out. And I think at the end of the day, if we're out here and we are trying to grow and we want to see Christian culture kind of look a certain way, right? I think that's where a lot of us have kind of run into this thing of like, man, you know, we've kind of lost sight of the mark a little bit in Christian culture. I think we can maybe start fixing some of that by really just, you know, getting behind each other. So I'm excited to see it, man, and to see what you do. So 5-10 years from now, man, and when we get together and we talk again, I mean, hopefully it'll be sooner than that, but 5-10 years from now, what's stuff looking like for you? And I mean, maybe just for what's happening in kind of this Christian film world in general.
There's about 600 films released a year right now, theatrically. My one goal in the next 10 years, it'd be really awesome if one of my films is one of those 600 in one of those years. If I get one film in the next 10 years where it's a feature, full-length movie where, I can go back home with my family and sit down and directed by Joe Henkel. That would be so much fun, at local cinema there or wherever. But that's the one big goal over the next 10 years. Other than okay, I'm going to continue to follow Jesus, continue to care about my family, continue to, help people however I can. And then just keep making movies and learning from each one and keep evolving and, as a filmmaker and keep growing and keep learning. And I love the journey so much that I feel like if you don't love the journey in creating, it's always going to be frustrating. It's always going to be overwhelming. It's always going to be painful.
Yeah, Joe, man, hey, it has been cool having you on the podcast with us here at 520 and just getting to know you a little bit better, man. I'm excited for the future, man, and I want to make sure that we as a platform are that we are doing what we can to support what you have going, man. So just know it, as stuff rolls out, we're a DM away.
Yeah, absolutely.
And guys, make sure you go follow, support, watch for the news on these short films that are coming out so that we as a culture can get behind it and step up and do our part. All right. So, but thank you guys for listening to this episode of the 520 Collective podcast. Shout out to our episode sponsors, including the Bookkeeper 24/7. Again, check them out at tbk247.com, and we will check you guys out on the next episode of the podcast. Let's go. All right, we're so glad that you tuned in for this episode of the 520 Collective podcast. In fact, we don't want it to end here. Make sure to join our server on Discord and be part of the growing community that's centered around faith-based hip-hop. Let us know your thoughts about the topics covered in this episode and tap into a variety of live events. Go to 520collective.com/Discord now to join.